All right, stand by. 10 seconds to go.
Count.
Ready, camera.
And
3,
2,
1.
Roll for record.
At the top of our rundown today is the amazing story of a student government that tried to ban the Stars and Stripes from their offices. I'm John Phillips, and this is the Rundown. Joining us from Dallas, Texas is PJTV contributor Scott Ott, and here in sunny Los Angeles, stand-up comic Stephen Cruiser. Now, Cruiser, you've lived in Los Angeles for quite some time, Southern California. Orange County is known for being the most conservative part of the state of California. This incident happened at the University of California at Irvine. Students got together and they decided to ban the American flag because they think it represents everything horrible about the country: racism, homophobia, oppression. At what point, as a taxpayer in Southern California, do you and the conservative people of Orange County, California, take a step back and say, what is it that we're paying taxes for? To educate these kids to hate the country that we live in? At what point do you say, we need to step in and get involved and fix things?
Honestly, I don't know, because the way the narrative played out with this was already bad enough. Afterwards, conservatives were actually celebrating the fact that this ban was reversed when the outrage still should have been there that the ban ever happened in the first place. I mean, everybody just kind of went, that's cool. I mean, a couple of people said, no, they never should have banned it in the first place. The problem isn't Southern California. I mean, it happens in conservative places. It happens everywhere on college campuses right now because the progressives have been taking over education since the late 1960s. This is how this happens. And they teach kids these things in school, and they think this is okay. They think this is normal. It's this anti-American bile that's spewed at them all day long by these burnout hippie professors. And that's what I wrote an entire book about it. It's on Amazon. Go look. It's there. But this is the problem. This is the norm in academia right now. This isn't an exception. This is what kids all over America are being taught at the moment.
Scott, is this the student speaking or is this the professors talking?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, when you get this age, these are young adults. They're not children. And I think they need to start taking responsibility for their behavior. But their minds have been molded in many ways, as mine were when I went to college. I was raised by very conservative grandparents. And then I got to college, and all of a sudden, every time I came home on a break from college, I was arguing with my grandfather. I was like, hey, how did that happen? We didn't used to argue so much before I went to college. And plus, the great thing about being in college was, in every argument, I was right. And I'm sure that's what these kids think about themselves right now. And, you know, it's really kind of sad to me because I can't tell you. I was just thinking back when Cruiser was talking of how many times I have come to tears with joy and pride in this country while looking at the American flag. It has such deep roots in my heart that I can't imagine somebody looking at it and thinking it's the symbol of anything other than liberty.
You know, Cruiser, if you look back into history, take one of the worst chapters of America, take slavery. Mm-hmm. Slavery existed before the United States existed, long before the United States existed. We didn't create slavery. We fought a very bloody war to end slavery. And I've never been able to figure out why academics in this country that make their living from the American taxpayers choose to focus on the fact that, oh, we had this horrible history and therefore the country is tainted, the country is evil, instead of the fact that a lot of people died to get rid of it. Why is it? It's always the glass half empty instead of the glass half full.
Well, because this era of academics was spawned by the late 60s radicals. They all became teachers. They couldn't do it. I mean, once they washed the mud off from Woodstock and got some penicillin shots, they went into teaching. And I mean, this isn't just me making something up. So the root of this is that anti-Americanism that was so prevalent in the late 60s, where it was the United States' fault for the war, it was the United States' fault for this, the United States' fault for that. And it's all just metastasized since then. And that's why, and now it's part of it's part of that. If they want to remain cool and if they want to remain well respected by most of the other academics, they have to keep going on with this. They have to be anti-capitalist, even if they just made $150,000 off the sale of a textbook they wrote the year before.
You know, Scott, before President Obama got into politics, he was a college professor. He taught at the University of Chicago Law School. And Rudy Giuliani just got into a lot of hot water by saying that he didn't think that the president loves America. And the left gets very indignant whenever someone from the right, like Rudy Giuliani, makes that claim publicly. Yet it seems like every other day that you open up the newspaper, you see a story like this. These kids aren't on the right. These professors aren't on the right. They're people of the left, and they want to take the American flag down. Why are we the bad ones when we question their patriotism when they constantly do stuff like this?
Well, and the sad thing is they don't understand what that flag really stands for. I mean, our country, in many ways, from its framing at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, has been an ongoing argument. And that's the beauty of this country. I mean, we can do that, and we can disagree with our leaders, and we can disagree with our president, our Congress, and our courts, and we can have this open debate. But for some reason, those on the left don't want to have that debate. They want to shut it down. They want to eliminate the symbols of the country itself. They don't like the Constitution as written. They don't like the flag as designed. And for some reason, they just don't get the fundamental premise. We, as you know, my friend Bill Whittle often says, and I think he's quoting someone else, you know, those of us on the right want the left to keep talking. Everyone on the left wants the right to shut up.
Can we put a picture of the students that voted to ban the American flag up on the screen? Okay. This is not an official photograph, obviously, from the university. This is something that was lifted from social media, so we cannot confirm that these are in fact the students, but it's out there on the internet. I'm going to make a politically incorrect point, Cruiser, and I want you to respond to it.
I think I'm following you there already, but go ahead.
There's not a white one among them. How much of this story are the ethnic studies departments at major universities exclusively existing to teach anti-Americanism and to teach the next generation of minorities to hate the government, hate the country, hate our history, hate our founders?
I think that's you got to couple that with the removal of a lot of the old white men stuff they've been removing from history departments too in America. So when you do that and you add to that the elementary schools not saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's this whole thing that just leads up to there. But the ethnic studies departments are fomenting anti-Americanism. You're right. They're people who hate America, and they're teaching that you need to hate America. All the while you're going to an American university funded by the American taxpayers.
Scott, how big of a problem is it if minority students don't look at George Washington as being the father of their country, which is what they're being taught in these departments?
Well, first of all, I love how the fact that the guy who was the key driver behind this movement was a guy whose name was Matthew Guevara, Matthew Ernesto Che Guevara, right there on the upper left on your screen. You know, I think it's a problem, but it's not just a problem among ethnic minorities. It's a problem among lots of people who don't fully appreciate the value of understanding your history and where you came from. They also don't understand something that I think is very important to a distinction to make. I love reading about our founding generation. And you don't have to read about Alexander Hamilton or Thomas Jefferson or even George Washington to a certain extent very long to realize that these were human beings. They weren't gods. And in fact, they were the first to acknowledge that they weren't gods. And those who were part of the framing of the Constitution, in fact, framed that document to protect us from what they knew were their sinful proclivities. We are not idolaters, those of us who look back at that founding generation. But we certainly see the value in people who had the boldness to stand up and to do something that's never been done in the history of the world, and in fact has created the entire atmosphere that allows, forgive the expression, little candy-ass kids like this to go to college and tear down the American flag.
And, you know, I can forgive a 21-year-old for being stupid or doing something like this. The 21-year-old is doing this because a grown-up taught him or her to do this. And what these grown-ups are doing right now is trying to create a world that they don't even understand. They're trying to create a world where you rip away the very freedoms that allow them to be grown-up idiots. And they're not going to understand that until it's too late. And that's why people like us have to be sensible and keep knocking our heads against them and not letting this kind of ideology prevail.
All right. Now that you've heard what we think, what do you think? How do we stop the anti-Americanism being taught at our colleges and universities, even in deeply red portions of the country? Give us your opinion in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.